The boy woke beneath a rusted billboard as thunder cracked like a judge's gavel over the waking city. Vendors shouted over the roar of buses, and the air was thick with diesel smoke and wet dust. His name was Kwame, and his pockets held bottle caps and one stubborn dream. A security guard's boots scraped the curb beside his cardboard bed. The guard said, "Move, small man. Streets aren't beds." Kwame replied, "Then I'll build a room big enough for all of us." Laughter from passing strangers rolled past him, not cruel but dismissive, and the city kept moving. He learned letters from torn magazines, coding from glimpses through cafe windows, and survival from the rhythm of the streets. Today, a TV in a shop window flashed headlines about streaming subscriptions and billion-dollar deals. Kwame's reflection stared back at him, framed by glass and rain. He didn't know the path, but he knew the feeling. The world was a theater that had locked him out. He decided to break in, one pixel at a time. The market women called him Professor because he moved his lips while reading scraps of paper. A bus driver once shouted, "Books won't feed you, boy." Kwame smiled and said, "Maybe they'll feed my map." He drew designs in chalk on an alley wall. Rectangles for screens, arrows for connections, circles for people who could not afford cinema tickets. His nights were gambles, a mosque veranda, the back of a kiosk, or a friend's step. He hunted for pockets of Wi-Fi leaking into the street. He watched fragmented documentaries, their subtitles like breadcrumbs to another world. The more he saw, the more he realized Africa's stories were being locked behind walls of price and geography, and those that escaped were reshaped to fit foreign tastes. He didn't want charity, he wanted structure. A door no one could close, a stage where every storyteller could stand. He pressed chalk dust into his palm, making the vow feel real. Kindness often came wrapped in small humiliations. A cafe owner let him sit near the window if he carried crates. "What? 2 hours, small man, and no sleeping," the owner said. Kwame agreed. He balanced trays, memorized keystrokes from paying customers, and tapped lines of code into a borrowed keypad with fingers that remembered hunger. A student chuckled. "You think you're Zuckerberg of Oshodi." The laughter was light, but he stored it as fuel. After countless failures, he finally got a login page to breathe. He named the blank space StreamSahara because deserts hid water for those who searched. On a napkin, he scribbled promises: low data, local voices, mobile first, offline ready. He folded it and slipped it into his shoe like armor. One day, he thought, this screen would greet a grandmother in Kano and a dancer in Kigali with the same warmth. Opportunity sometimes came dressed as a trap. A small production house offered access to 5 films if he helped with tech. The manager smirked. "We'll pay you an exposure." Kwame said, "Exposure is for photos." They laughed, softened, then sharpened. He built their site overnight, only to find himself locked out the next morning. Passwords changed. His work taken. That was when he learned. Power hides in paperwork, and protection starts with owning your name. He saved earnings from cafe shifts, bought a second-hand phone, and began messaging filmmakers directly. Aunties with wedding dramas, cousins making music videos, uncles with roadside comedies. "Give me rights to your catalog," he said, "and I'll put you in every pocket." They didn't all believe him yet. His real anchor wasn't homelessness. It was the sound of almost being seen. Once a teacher paused beside his chalk diagrams, eyes bright with recognition, about to speak. Then a phone call pulled her away. That unfinished moment lived in him like a lighthouse that never turned fully toward shore. He kept building for the day someone would finish that sentence. "You are worthy, dangerous, ready." He coded as calls to prayer rose, as generators coughed awake, as the city chased its 1,000 hustles. He pieced together a prototype with thumbnails of Nollywood gems, Dakar poetry, Kenyan indie shorts. The login worked, the videos didn't yet. Soon he whispered. Taking the last bottle cap from his pocket, he pressed it into his palm and swore, "I will not ask permission to exist." The rain eased, and morning light seemed to nod in agreement. Years moved like sprinting shadows, and Kwame learned to match their pace without losing his breath. At 19, he slept on a cousin's floor. At 21, on a startup incubator couch. At 23, in an unclaimed balcony chair. A mentor at the incubator said, "Monetize the rich first." Kwame replied, "I'm building for the 1 gigabyte customer." They called it naive, until a test group streamed 3 episodes for less than the cost of a bus fare. He mastered compression, invented market night mode, a grayscale player that sipped bandwidth like tea. He pitched rights holders in sweaty lobbies where ceiling fans ticked like metronomes. A famous producer smirked, "Your heart is big, your pockets are not." Kwame answered, "Let my pockets learn from my heart." StreamSahara crept onto cheap phones in 3 cities. At a roadside kiosk a boy whispered, "It works," and that whisper felt louder than any investor applause. Success brought predators. A friendly telecom offered a pilot partnership that turned into a theft. Their own streaming clone launched with cheaper data bundles. The executive said, "It's just business." Kwame replied, "Business has a memory." He pivoted, building loyalty at street level. Campus film clubs sprouted in dorm lounges, projectors painting white walls with local stories. He wired micro-licensing fees directly to filmmakers, who had only heard excuses before. A director from Accra said, "No one's ever paid me that fast." Kwame answered, "Stories shouldn't wait for permission." He engineered offline download tokens that hopped between phones like shared songs. Ministers called him disruptive, with smiles that warned of storms. He bowed politely, then spent the night writing policy briefs in silence. Public charm, private granite. Classism was polite violence. Investors cooed at his pitch deck, then asked, "Where did you study?" Kwame answered, "Sidewalk, café, borrowed keypad." One partner said, "We prefer founders with pedigree." He replied, "Pedigree is for dogs. I have proof." He showed retention graphs rising like patient dawn, testimonials from bus parks and hair salons, heat maps pulsing in bright clusters across townships. A woman investor leaned forward. "If you can crack payments, I'll back you." Kwame invented scratch card subscriptions, sold beside our time at street kiosks. Aunties bought them with plantains. Children traded them like football stickers. When the seed money landed, he didn't cry. He bought servers and gave his team extra hours of rest. The bottle cap stayed in his pocket, heavier now with meaning. The APF's first great storm came during a beloved series finale. At exactly 8:05 p.m., the servers buckled, and the comment feed turned to knives. "You stole my night," one user wrote. Panic rippled through the team. The CTO muttered, "Scale is a hurricane." Kwame said, "Anchor us." He live-streamed an apology from a plastic chair. No backdrop but bare walls. He promised credits for outages and reminded them engineers were human. "We'll build a second backbone before dawn," he vowed. Then he routed motorbike couriers carrying hard drives to neighborhood servers, creating a pop-up delivery mesh. A courier asked, "We're really doing this?" Kwame replied, "Tonight decides if we deserve tomorrow." By midnight, the finale streamed again, and comments softened into emojis. Family shadows reached even into his rising light. An uncle reminded him of unpaid school fees from years ago. A cousin demanded a salaried role he couldn't perform. "You've made it," the uncle said. Kwame replied, "I'm making it. That's different." The cousin's resentment spilled onto Facebook, where a tabloid headline read, "Street Boy, Slick Boy." He ignored the sting, visiting his mother's sister with groceries. She blessed the bottle cap when he placed it on her table. "Carry the good weight," she said. "I will," he promised. Outside, a neighbor's child ran up with a cracked phone saying, "Your app let me watch a film in my language." For a moment, the world's laughter was with him, not at him. The call came at midnight from a blocked number. A voice said, "We know who really owns your code." Kwame sat upright, the bottle cap cold in his palm. The caller claimed his earliest prototype, built in a cafe on a borrowed keypad, had been mirrored onto a university server and credited to someone else. He traced the claim and found the name. A mentor from the incubator, smiling in a press photo, holding an award for innovation in African streaming. The mentor's quote read, "I built this for the people." Kwame stared at the words until they blurred. This was not theft of a feature or design. It was theft of his beginning. Without proof, it would be his word against an established figure. He decided to dig, not shout. Secrets, he knew, rotted best in silence until the right moment to open the door. He combed through old drives, hunting for timestamps, commit logs, scraps of code bearing his digital fingerprints. In dusty folders he found a line of early script with a peculiar misspelling, his own typo, now living inside the award-winning app's public codebase. The discovery was a key no one else would recognize. A teammate from the early days confirmed. "That's your work, no doubt." Kwame asked, "Would you testify?" Silence followed. Fear was louder than loyalty. He archived everything twice, hiding copies in cloud accounts under false names. His anger was surgical now, no longer raw. The city outside kept moving, neon lights reflecting in puddles, unaware that a reckoning was being built one file at a time. The twist deepened when an anonymous email arrived with attachments, private correspondence between the mentor and a telecom executive plotting to acquire StreamSahara by discrediting Kwame as a street amateur. The sender wrote only, "For your eyes. Use wisely." In one email, the mentor called him useful, but unpolished. A tool to be replaced when investors needed polish. Kwame closed the laptop and sat in stillness. This was no misunderstanding. It was premeditated erasure. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of truth in his possession. He knew releasing it now would burn bridges and possibly scorch his own future. But holding it meant becoming complicit in his own erasure. He decided on a quieter strike. At a tech conference, he waited until the mentor's keynote was over, then approached during the networking chaos. "I see you still use my typo," Kwame said lightly, handing over a business card with the code snippet printed on the back. The mentor's smile froze for half a second, before returning to stage brightness. "We all borrow from each other," he replied. Kwame walked away without raising his voice, but the message had landed. The next day a journalist emailed him saying, "Someone told me you might have the real StreamSahara origin story." The door was opening. The journalist met him in a small cafe 2 blocks from the station. She asked, "Why come forward now?" Kwame answered, "Because silence is how they win." He slid a USB drive across the table, its metal surface worn from his pocket. Inside were commit logs, source files, and the damning emails. She promised to verify every byte before publishing. Adid Toldi. Outside, rain began to fall, tapping the glass like a countdown. Kwame knew the story would explode, either making him a symbol or painting a target on his back. He took the bottle cap from his pocket, set it beside the coffee cup, and said, "Whatever happens, they'll know I was here." The article dropped at dawn. By breakfast, hashtags naming Kwame as the real founder trended across 3 countries. Screenshots of his code, his prototype sketches, and the mentor's emails spread like wildfire. Some called him a hero. Others accused him of slander. Investors froze meetings, and the telecom quietly scrubbed mentions of the mentor from their site. A radio host asked live on air, "How does it feel to take down a giant?" Kwame replied, "I didn't take anyone down. I told the truth." But the truth was heavier than applause. His inbox flooded with support from strangers, legal threats from lawyers, and offers from partners he'd never met. The city seemed louder, brighter, faster, like it knew his name now, and wanted to see what he would do next. The mentor called. His voice was calm, almost amused. "You could have come to me first," he said. Kwame replied, "You could have given me credit first." The line went quiet. Then the mentor sighed. "You've made enemies now." Kwame looked out the window at the rain-streaking glass. "I've had enemies since the street," he said, and hung up. His phone buzzed again. This time, a message from a minister's aide requesting a private meeting. The caption read, "We can help you protect this, if you help us." Kwame knew every gift from power carried hooks. The meeting took place in a quiet government lounge, with deep leather chairs and heavy curtains. The aide smiled warmly. "You've proven your genius, but without allies, you'll lose to those with deeper pockets." Kwame asked, "And your price?" The aide's smile didn't falter. "We'd like influence on content licensing." It was an elegant cage, power in exchange for partial control over what Africa could watch. Kwame sipped his water, feeling the steel bars closing. "If I give you the keys," he said, "it's no longer my house." The aide leaned back. "Think about it. Doors close quickly in this city." Kwame turned to his team that night. "If we take their deal, we grow faster. But they'll own the door." The CTO said, "And if we don't?" Kwame replied, "We build our own lock." The room buzzed with nervous energy. They stayed until morning, mapping a network that bypassed traditional licensing, a decentralized hosting model fueled by micro-creators. It was riskier, slower, but unshakable. By dawn, their whiteboard looked like a war plan. Kwame capped his marker, saying, "If they come for us, they'll find we've moved the wall." At a packed industry gala 2 weeks later, Kwame stood on stage to accept an innovation award voted by the public. Cameras flashed, applause swelled, and somewhere in the crowd, he saw the mentor watching, face unreadable. "This," Kwame said into the mic, "is for every kid who was told to move along." The room erupted. He didn't mention the fight still ahead, the lawsuits pending, or the minister's offer still unanswered. Instead, he raised the bottle cap from his pocket, held it between thumb and forefinger, and smiled. Somewhere deep down, the street boy was still there, but now he had a microphone. The lawsuits began to drain his time and energy, but StreamSahara's user base kept growing. Supporters posted videos of grandparents watching village-made dramas on cracked phones, and students held pop-up film nights in courtyards. Every success felt like a small rebellion. A friend told him, "You're building more than an app, you're building a habit." Kwame knew habits outlived headlines. He resisted offers from foreign investors who wanted majority control, no matter how tempting the numbers looked. "The day I sign that away," he told his lead developer, "is the day I start working for someone else's dream." He began traveling to meet creators face to face. Filmmakers in dusty small-town studios, musicians recording in one-room shacks, animators working from cybercafes. In each meeting he carried the same pitch, "Your story belongs everywhere." They signed on, not for big money, but for ownership of their voice. A young director from Goma told him, "You've given me an audience bigger than my street." Kwame replied, "Your street is bigger than you think." With each handshake, the catalog grew into something no competitor could easily steal, a living archive of Africa's many voices. One morning, an email arrived from an international streaming giant. They wanted to explore partnership opportunities, a polite way of saying, "We see you now." His advisors were split. Some urged him to sell, others to hold the line. He stared at their offer, imagining the resources it could bring, but also the creative control it could erase. In the end, he wrote back, "Let's talk about licensing, not ownership." It was his way of planting a flag. StreamSahara could collaborate, but it would not bow. Months later, the first cross-border licensing deal was signed, South African series appearing in Nigerian feeds, Ghanaian documentaries playing in Ugandan classrooms. The map on the office wall lit up with pins marking every new market. "We're not just streaming," Kwame told his team, "we're trading culture." It was the first time he allowed himself to exhale. The bottle cap stayed on his desk now, not in his pocket, a reminder of where the journey began, and why it could never end with just him. On a quiet Sunday morning, Kwame visited the street where the rusted billboard still stood. The vendors were new, the bus paint fresher, but the rhythm of the place felt the same. He stood where his cardboard bed had once been, listening to the market wake up. A boy about the age he had been stopped to watch him. "Are you someone?" the boy asked. Kwame smiled and said, "We all are." He handed him the bottle cap, now worn smooth. "This is for your map," he added, before walking away into the noise of the city, his story now part of something larger than himself. The map on the office wall kept filling, but so did the threats. Pirated versions of StreamSahara appeared overnight, some with malware hidden behind its familiar logo. Kwame's inbox filled with angry users, blaming him for stolen data. His security lead said, "We need more than patches, we need a fortress." Kwame knew the pirates were not just random hackers but organized groups tied to competitors. He spent nights on calls with cybersecurity experts, rewriting code from the ground up. If they want war, he told his team, we'll give them something they can't copy: trust. A government delegation from a neighboring country arrived unannounced, requesting a private demonstration of StreamSahara's data controls. Their leader smiled too much, speaking in careful formalities. Kwame suspected they were hunting for a way to block politically sensitive content. "We serve stories, not censorship," he told them. The air in the room cooled. As they left, one whispered, "Careful. Some doors close without a sound." Kwame knew this was a warning, not advice. The attacks shifted from code to character. Anonymous accounts flooded social media with claims that Kwame had stolen his own idea from foreign backers. Old photos were twisted into false stories. His comms manager asked, "Do we respond?" Kwame shook his head. "We keep building." But at night, alone, the noise crept in. He replayed the market insults from years ago, wondering if the boy under the billboard would still recognize the man in the headlines. Then came a surprising ally, the journalist who had first broken his origin story. She arrived at his office with a USB drive and a grin. "Proof your rivals are funding the piracy." The files showed payment trails, server logs, and internal chats. "You could end them," she said. Kwame stared at the evidence. Taking them down would mean lawsuits, investigations, maybe even arrests. But it would also paint a larger target on his own back. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "you don't win by swinging harder, you win by standing longer." Instead of launching an immediate strike, Kwame rolled out a surprise update, a creator revenue sharing program that doubled payouts for verified partners. Competitors scrambled to match it, draining their own reserves. Users and creators flooded to StreamSahara, and the pirates' audience began to shrink. "We don't just defend the castle," Kwame told his team. "We make it the best place to live." In the background, the map on the wall kept lighting up with new pins, not from conquest but from loyalty. Months later, StreamSahara reached its 100th city. The milestone came quietly, without fireworks, just a notification on Kwame's dashboard. He closed his laptop, letting the weight of the journey settle. The boy under the billboard had become a man with a map, lit in 100 places. Yet, he knew the fight for ownership and access was never over. "This is just the first act," he murmured to himself. The city outside glowed with night lights, and somewhere, people were watching their first film in their own language because of him. The mentor was seen again, this time at another conference, older, quieter, offering no acknowledgement when their paths crossed. Kwame didn't stop him. There was nothing left to win in that fight. The truth had already done its work. In the hallway, a group of young founders stopped him, asking how he'd started. He told them, "Start with what you have, protect what you build, and give more than you take." Their eyes lit up. The same hunger he once carried. One evening, he visited a rural school where students had pooled coins to buy a single StreamSahara subscription. They projected films on a wall, painted white, laughter bouncing in the open air. A teacher whispered, "You've brought the world to us." Kwame smiled but shook his head. "No, I'm just making sure the world hears you back." It was moments like these that steadied him against the noise and chaos of the industry. The bottle cap lived now in a small frame on his desk, beside the first phone that ever ran StreamSahara. Visitors always asked why it mattered. He would tell them, because you can't forget where you slept, or you'll forget why you're awake. The cap was more than a keepsake. It was proof that dreams could start from scraps, and that the smallest things could hold the heaviest meaning. On the anniversary of the launch, Kwame walked alone to the rusted billboard where it all began. The city sounded the same. Bus horns, market calls, the hum of endless motion. He placed his hand on the cool metal and whispered, "We're still building." A young vendor nearby asked who he was talking to. Kwame smiled and said, "An old friend." Then he stepped into the crowd, disappearing into the living, breathing network of stories he had helped set free.